All right, Jeff Zimmerman here with world title contender Erickson, the Hammer Lubin, headlining a big card here in Fort Worth, Texas, Dickies Arena against Vergil Ortiz Jr. November 8th. And live on DAZN, man, it's a stacked card. You got JoJo
Oh,
Diaz
shit.
and Kid Austin is the co-main. How you doing, Erickson?
I'm doing great. How are you? Hold on, let me fix this. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I was excited to see you at the presser in Arlington about a month ago, and
Yes, sir.
so I appreciate you doing this. But let's see. Let's wait for that to turn.
That in turn?
Nah, you had it, and then it. Oh, there you
Okay.
go. There you
Yeah.
go. But listen, man, you've been on the scene a long time. You bursted out, been a pro for about 12 or 13 years, came out with Iron Mike Tyson.
hmm
Um, your first title shot against Dermel didn't go your way, and then you had that war with Fundora. What keeps you motivated after all these years?
Well, my mind is still focused on the goal, and that's to become world champion and be that guy. Be that guy not just in my weight division, but be that guy in boxing. I've been doing this for a long time. So I stay motivated. I'm motivated. And that's why I choose the fights that I be choosing. I don't go for no hand-picked opponents. I don't try to fight, guys with losing record. I never fought a guy with a losing record. Never. So that's what keep me motivated. Just basically me not reaching my goals yet. So I'm right there. I got these good opponents in front of me. This is my third undefeated fighter in a row. Third top 10 opponent, and I feel like it's time to capitalize on everything. Everything I've been through, and yeah, they got Vergil Ortiz as the number one guy in 154 pounds on the ring rankings, and I feel like with a big one like this, it'll just put me there.
Yeah, man. And real quick before we get into the fight, I just got to ask you, what was it like rolling out with Mike Tyson? Like, so, right to the beginning of your career, I think you passed up on the Olympics, you went pro. I remember him rolling into the Mesquite Arena in Texas. I don't know. I think you might have been fighting or was there in a Rolls Royce halfway through the show. Were you at that fight? Were you on the
No, no,
card?
I wasn't at that fight. But I
Okay.
went to I went to a few of those fights. Verona, New York, Miami, just a whole bunch of places. But that experience, it was just an experience. It was a great experience for me. To start the scene so young with somebody who also started the scene so young and became world champion at a very young age and just maybe 1 year of being professional. So um it was a great experience. I feel like they did what was right for me, and we obviously moved on, but we still have a great relationship. So you know, um, yeah, it was a great experience.
Yeah, I mean, Iron Mike and the Hammer is not a bad combo. So
All right.
you guys kind of went together. But listen, man, you're only what, 30, 29, 30?
Yeah, I just turned 30 2 weeks ago.
Okay, well, happy birthday, man. So
Thank you.
you're in the most, probably now, I mean, it always changes, but the most stacked division in boxing,
Yeah.
154. You're still in the top 10, and yet your name very rarely gets brought up as one of the top dogs. You kind of alluded to it. They already kind of anointed Vergil as the number one guy, and he's not even a champion. But how does that make you feel when your name's not really out there in the public?
It keeps me motivated. It keeps me motivated, and you know, I've been one of the top guys for a while, and boxing right now has to me became a popularity contest. So they like Virgil hasn't become a champion, but they got him number one. He hasn't fought to me none of the top dogs like the Fundoras and the Charlos and those type of opponents, but they got him number one in the 154-pound division from beating Buhachuk, who just lost to Brandon Adams again, and Majimov, which Majimov he's a good fighter, but he's a little inexperienced. He only has like 12, 13 fights. He don't have that many fights, and from those two wins that catapulted Vergil Ortiz as the #1 guy, and I really don't agree with that. But with it being a popularity contest, I'm just rolling with the punches, and I'm glad I get to face one of these popular fighters, the #1 guy in the division, so they say. So this is a very important fight for me. I'm very motivated. I've been training really, really, really hard, and it's gonna show on November 8th. Like that. The people that talk down on me, the people that do all that hating. You know, you can't deny me. I'm one of those fighters you can't deny. You know, I was in my third year as a professional. I was already fighting for a world title, so I'm still here. They wish I was gone, but I'm still here, and it really don't. It doesn't matter to me what the fans think. It's about what I go in the ring and do. So that's
You
what's
know,
important. November 8th is special for me.
yeah, yeah, and I can't wait. Erickson, you remind me, I've been in Dallas covering the local scene for years, covered Spence for years, and you kind of have that a little bit of that similar personality. He wasn't a big talker. He wasn't a big, guy. I mean, he got promoted very well, Big Fish
Yeah,
and stuff like that. But when you talk to him, he gave you good quotes. And you seem the same guy. You're kind of reserved. You don't play the social media game.
yeah. I actually just deleted that X app because I was going on the app for a little bit, and then I'll just see what they say and what they got to say about the fight, and then I watched the Boots Ennis fight on Saturday against Lima, and I just see how they're overlooking me and stuff like that. So I just put my head down and work. I don't got to do too much talking when, I know I haven't really been on the scene as much, you know, in these past few years, and I feel like the game has just changed. With a lot of the popularity contests, I don't really care too much about that because I let my hands do the talking, and I feel like Vergil Ortiz is kind of the same way. That's why we didn't have no crazy words going back and forth. We just, we stared at each other and gave each other handshakes, and it was like, I see you on fight night because um you got a highly skilled matchup. You got a highly skilled matchup, and the fans are in for a treat. So we don't gotta say too much words. We don't gotta say too much words. You guys are just gonna watch on Saturday night, November 8th, and it's gonna be a nice, explosive fight. It's gonna be great. I'm telling you right now, it's gonna be a great fight, one to remember.
If you need lessons for social media and talking, you got a guy in your backyard, Keith, one-time Thurman, another Floridian.
Yeah.
What's your relationship with Keith before we get into the Virgil fight?
Um, me and Keith, I actually grew up around Keith. He was much older. He was sparring guys like I'll be in the gym. He'll be sparring guys like Birdo. He'll be sparring my older brother, and I'll just be a young buck in the corner just
Hmm.
watching. So he remembers me from those days, and yeah, me and Keith, there's no bad blood at all. I respect Keith. I respect him as a fighter. He's one of those guys too. He looks for the big challenges.
Yeah.
He may be at the tail end of his career, or well, so they say. You never know until the fighter actually goes in there and fight. But with age, he's probably what 35, 36 years old. And that usually is the time where fighters are at their tail end. But he's going in there, he's still performing, and he's still looking for the big challenges. Like he's about to fight Fundora. You know, he fought Pacquiao just a few years ago. He's fought some top guys, so
Yeah.
I respect Keith Thurman. He's one of them tough Floridians for sure.
Yeah. And he's got that gift of gab for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah.
Um, But listen, man, speaking of Virgil, he told me at your press conference, I asked him, I go, why Erickson? Why now? I mean, you're a dangerous fighter for anybody. And like you said, he's been anointed #1, top guy. It seems like he would be in for a title fight. And he
Yeah,
said nobody else would fight him but you.
yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know about that too much. Like these fighters, shit, it was hard for me to get a fight. It was hard for me to get somebody in the ring with me. So um, I know we had the IBF dude. He wanted to fight Bakram. I know he wanted to fight, but it just wasn't set up. It wasn't laid out. It wasn't. It was too much negotiating. But there was fights. There were fights on the table. I don't really think that was the case, honestly. Some fighters play that diva role and want to like have things on their terms and have things like pretty much perfect for them. So I feel like that's why they do a lot of like no's. They say a lot of no's because they want to be the A side, or they want this much money and they want this much, and it's too much negotiating. We gotta give fans what they want, and this is how you become that dude. This is how you become the one that they got to answer to by fighting guys like Vergil. This is my third undefeated fighter in a row. I hope I get some respect for that. But um, beating guys like this is just gonna make me the guy to beat. And I'm gonna be the one to call shots. Remember, I say this, man. I'm gonna be the one to call shots.
And listen, I know Virgil's not sleeping on you. He told me that. So he doesn't look at it as, he knows you're going to be a tough fight, but they are already talking about Virgil and Boots going into next year. Um, does that, I mean, I know you have the motivation. You don't, I mean, that doesn't matter, but when you hear talk like that, I mean, what are your thoughts?
I don't really care because I got plans of my own. I got plans to fight Fundora again. I got plans to fight Charlo again. Fundora's the champion at 154, the WBC world champion, and me and Vergil we're fighting for the WBC interim title. So this sets up perfect for a match like that for myself. This is the interim title fight, and you know, being a guy like Vergil would set me up to fight Fundora again in a rematch that was action packed. The fans loved it. They would love to see it again, I'm sure. And, you know, so they promote it well. They promote the Boots Ennis fight really well, but he got somebody like myself who's hungry and got plans of his own. So I don't really care. Like I said, boxing's been a popularity contest. These dudes sit up on social media and create narratives. I don't give a damn about none of that shit. Like I got plans of my own. This is my career. I'll be damned if I let anybody dictate what's gonna happen in my career and what's gonna happen in my life.
If you beat Virgil, would you want the Boots fight?
Uh, when I beat a guy like Virgil, nah. At this moment, I wouldn't say yes to it. Just because I'll be doing Boots more of a favor, honestly. And is it a high selling fight? I don't know, but I would like to go rectify my loss against Fundora and fight for a world title instead of fighting. You know, that's just what the fans may want. That's just what the fans may want. But this is for me. It's for my future, my career, my legacy. I would like to fight Fundora and rectify that loss, and maybe fight a guy like Charlo again. That's what's important to me.
Yeah.
Boots is a great fighter. Don't get me wrong, he's a great fighter, but that'd be doing him more of a favor. He just went out there on Saturday and fought a guy like Usman Lima. You know, we never heard of that dude.
We don't know. We
We
don't.
don't know that dude, and the fact that he knocked out a guy with 14 fights in the first round is impressive to the fans, and that's what gets me. It's like what, like Boots. Boots could really fight. Like, yeah, he gonna do that to somebody with just 14 fights. Somebody who already took a L, somebody who lost to a guy that's like not even on the level of Boots. He lost to the guy McKenna, who's a great fighter. He could fight, but there's levels to this game. And I feel like I said, it's been a lot of popularity contests going on. You got a great promoter in Eddie Hearn who put things out there like that. Like he knocked out Usman Lima and he's screaming on the mic like as if he won. Like we don't want to hear you, Eddie. Shut up. We don't want to hear you. Like, yeah, it's cool you're being a promoter, but it's Boots' moment. Let Boots talk for himself. And I feel like, with Boots being at home, he probably got that energy, so he just started calling out everybody. Well, why didn't you fight them like immediately? Why didn't you had to go get a tune up? You had to go get a 14-1 tune up? Come on, man. Well,
No one's
I'm
calling
calling a
out.
spade a spade. And I think Boots is one hell of a fighter.
Yeah, and I don't hear anybody calling out the hammer after fights. Um, you mentioned Fundora. I was going to ask you about him if you wanted another crack, and obviously you do. I mean, that fight was, if Hagler Hearns was the war, that was the war too.
Yeah.
It was more than 3 rounds. Um, but how tough of a guy like Fundora? I mean, you went to battle with them. You could speak better than anybody about fighting him, and now we mentioned Keith Thurman has him lined up. Um, got postponed maybe to January, but talk about fighting him and how difficult it is because of his height and his length.
Yeah, his height and his length is something to deal with for sure. And like when I was in camp, I was sparring light heavyweights, guys who were 6'3", 6'4". So yeah, and he has volume. He was throwing a lot of punches, and being that tall, it was just something to deal with. But with training, with preparation, I was able to figure some things out and and crack him. But with my face being swelled up and all that type of stuff, it was just kind of too late. My trainer was just looking out for me. Kevin Cunningham at the time was just looking out, and he basically did what's best. To his opinion, he felt like that was the best thing to do. With me wanting to fight and stuff like that, maybe I was being too tough for my own good, but that's just how I felt. But you know, you live and you learn. I would love to rectify that loss, like I said. Even the fight with Charlo, I feel like that fight ended a little too early. It wasn't something I wanted to happen, of course, but or I expected to happen, I guess. But it happened. I just gotta live with it, and that's why I keep punching. I keep fighting. I believe in myself. I know what I'm capable of. So yeah,
Keith told me the way, and Fundora fights inside, right? So, he doesn't really, I mean, he's been boxing a little bit more on the outside, but he loves to go inside for his height and length. But Keith said the way you beat him is you go to the body, you knock down the tree. Does Keith does Keith have a chance to win that fight? And if he
yeah, he
does,
has a
would you
chance.
fight Keith?
He has a chance for sure. Like Keith has great lateral movement and he has great power. So and he's experienced. So that may play in his favor a little bit. And Fundora, he likes to be on the inside, of course, and susceptible to some big shots. Do I want to fight a guy like Keith Thurman? We could do it in Florida. We could do
Hmm.
that fight in Florida. That'd be a great fight for the hometown fans. He's not far at all from where I live. He's about an hour away, and I think that'd be a big fight. That'd be definitely a big fight for the hometown fans.
Especially with Antonio Tarver on the mic. I mean,
Yeah,
eh,
that's my boy.
yeah, yeah, that would be fun. Let me ask you, and we'll wrap up here, Erickson. I appreciate you doing this, man.
Yes, sir.
Great to catch up. Let me ask you about a few fights. You mentioned Fundora Thurman, Haney, Brian Norman. To me, that's one of the most, besides you and Vergil, that's one of the most interesting fights out there. What
Yeah,
are your thoughts on that fight?
I think that's a great fight. It's a great fight for boxing. Both fighters want to be great, especially a guy like Haney. Haney. He's just moving up. He's just moving up to 147, going right after the champion. You know, that that's something that you could admire from a guy like Haney. But Boots Ennis, he comes in and fights a guy like Usman Lima out the gate, and they're bigging him up on so big on that one. But I pay more attention. I pay more respect to Haney for fighting a guy like Brian Norman. I think it's a great fight. It's a 50-50 fight in my opinion. And may the best man win. I think Brian Orman's a great puncher. He had a devastating knockout with Susaki or whatever his
in
name
Japan.
was.
Yeah,
He had a guy in Japan. That was a tremendous knockout, and that's just 2 weeks after my fight. So I think the fans are in for a treat. Great
yeah.
fight.
What about it's not done yet. Excuse me, I'm dealing with some shortness of breath, but Shakur Tiafimo, they do a lot of good talking. Like, we mentioned earlier, the social media stuff. Shakur, I think one of the most skilled guys in boxing.
Yep.
And then Tiafimo, he was on his way to be superstardom, and so forth. What do you think about that clash?
That's another great fight. Both fighters wanted to put on great fights for the boxing fans. Yeah, just another great fight in my opinion. I think Shakur is one of the best fighters in boxing. I pay a lot of attention to both fighters. I think that's a great fight. I think Shakur edges that, in my opinion. But Tiafimo he's twitchy, he's fast, he's powerful. Um, Another great fight.
Yeah. And this is probably not going to happen at this point. Shakur and Tank. If that super fight ever were to happen, um, how do you see that playing out?
I think that's a great fight. I think that's another great fight. Like I said, Shakur's one of the most skilled fighters in boxing. I think he'll be one of the only people to give Tank those type of problems. And Tank he's a devastating puncher, but just in my opinion, I don't really feel like Tank really cares for the sport as much as he once did. And I think Shakur just he's always he's thinking about legacy more than the money. He's touched the money, he has the money, and he wants to be great. So I also might add Shakur on that one.
And I would be remiss talking about great if I didn't ask you about what Bud Crawford did versus Canelo Alvarez in September. I was at the fight. What did you think of his performance, and where does that put him in, amongst the all-time greats?
Yeah, he's on the Mount Rushmore for sure. Um, at least the top three for sure.
Hmm.
I think that was a tremendous performance. I feel like I was watching that last night, but he basically disarmed Canelo. Canelo tried a lot of things, and but Crawford had an answer for everything. He had an answer for everything. He had great movement, great speed, great counters, great everything. He was just ready for that fight.
Have you ever shared the ring with him?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. What were those sessions like?
Great sparring, great sparring, great experience. But Crawford's one of the best, and it was great sparring, great sparring.
Yeah, yeah. And let me ask you this, and I'll get you out of here. There was, we'll call it poster gate.
Yeah.
Tell me what happened. I know they put you on the poster really small. And
Yeah.
Vergil, did you say something about it, or what was that all about? I heard some line.
Yeah, yeah. They put me real small in the corner somewhere, and they got Virgil shining as the moon over me, and I found that a little disrespectful. But it's his show. It's Golden Boy. It's on the zone. This is my first time fighting on the zone, and they just like I said, it's a lot of popularity contests, a lot of that stuff going on. I don't know if they're trying to throw me off my game or something, but that shit won't work. Not with a poster. That's light to me. We coming up with our own posters and all that type of stuff, so it don't really matter to me. They could try to use that as the promo all they want. It is disrespectful to me and my brand. I won't promote it at all, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, listen, Erickson, I don't think anybody thinks this fight is going the distance. What should we expect November 8th, Fort Worth, Texas, at Dickies Arena, live on DAZN, main event on a truly stacked card?
Yeah. Um, it's hammer time. It's hammer time. Everybody tune in on the zone, November 8th. It's To me, it's more like Judgment Day. It's Judgment Day for Virgil. He hasn't, to me, fought nobody like myself yet. And, for myself, I'm just ready to show the people that I'm here to stay. And I've been doing it for years, and I've done it once and I'll do it again. And, it's time for me to become a world champion. So this is important for me.
Erickson, man, this was everything I thought it would be. The first time I talked to you was great. This was probably even greater. I need to go back and look at that interview. But
Yeah.
I welcome you to Texas, Fort Worth. I'm up in North Dallas, Frisco at the Star, by the Star, I should say. But looking forward to the fight. I think it's going to be a fight of the year candidate. I mean, fireworks. So good luck, and we'll see you here in a few weeks.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you.
Yeah.